facilitate it, just keep it ticking over. I think that means just keep everyone to time. So today we've got 3 people giving us a quick lightning talk about something they're working on, or an idea they've got, or something crazy they want to float out there and get some feedback on. So first of all, thank you to those of you who are sharing something. It's always a bit scary to try and give something comprehensive and detailed in such a short period of time. But in the spirit of collegiality, hopefully we can have some fun and interesting discussions. So first up is going to be Jennifer. Jennifer, I'll give you, I don't know, 10, 12 minutes or so, and then we'll have some questions. Second will be Mary and Maria, and then third will be Greg. So I'll keep everyone to time, just so everyone gets a crack, and I'll stop talking so I don't waste your time. Jenny, over to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm sharing what will be of interest to some people about the update of the approved learning frameworks that have been that are used in childcare centres, kindergartens, preschools, and outside school hours care services across Australia. So this is how I've spent my time for the last 2 years, hanging out with colleagues from Macquarie, QUT and Edith Cowan University, and I'm on that team. I'm the only outside school hours care educator, so that was a pretty demanding responsibility for me. Before I go any further, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the country on which we're meeting today, and I'd like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Jagera people, because that's the land in which I'm sitting today. So the purposes of the update were to reflect contemporary development. I wrote My Time, Our Place in 2010 based on the early years learning framework, Belonging, Being and Becoming. And like 13 years, 12 years have passed and there'd been no changes or updates to them. So the government was keen to see whether they were still relevant and what needed to happen to them. So we involved in a three-stage process across Australia to actually see what kinds of things needed to change. And in stage 1, we engaged with a few key stakeholders. And I just should tell you a little bit about the project team. There were the 6 key researchers, and each of us had a writing buddy that came from either childcare, kindergarten, or outside school hours care. So we had this practitioner working with us alongside us for the 2 years of the project, which meant that gave us entree into a broader community of children and families. And we also had a consortium of people from the sector that were really had a lot of knowledge across the sector that could contribute. And we also had a wise council of 4 very experienced people in the children's services sector that we could go to. So it was a really interesting, large team, but a very strategic team to actually make sure that we had all stakeholder perspectives involved. So out of the work in stage 1, we actually came up with 20 recommendations that we thought needed to be changed in the update of the frameworks. And this was based on a review of literature that we had undertaken, and also Delphi panels, and also surveying educators and parents and asking children about what they thought about the service delivery that they had. So in stage 1, we involved 11 services. Educators collected children's drawings and responses about what they liked about their service, what they'd like to change. And we also had our parent surveys that were translated into at least 5 languages. So we had a lot of information that helped us then move into stage 2. And I'm particularly passionate about the the collection of information of children's data, because we asked the children in early childhood what they like doing and what do they do here that you would like to do. And then we had the questions for the outside school hours care sector as well. So this is the first time that an Australian childcare framework has had input from children, and we've actually been chatting to some international colleagues, and we think it's one of the first times that children have actually had a rather large say in this curriculum material has been written for them. Just recently, the Scottish outside school hours services have written a charter for their school age care services, and that has been co-designed with children. This wasn't co-designed, but we absolutely engaged with them. The children told us a lot about what they like to do and talked a lot about what the activities were in their program. They talked about the environments that they were in, but of particular significance, they told us about the relationships. And I think this was this surprised people a lot, how articulate the children were about their relationships with their educators, and how even around the relationships they saw between their educators and their parents. And the other thing they talked a lot about was self-care. And so this information was used to formulate the second stage, which was a discussion paper with those 20 recommendations that I showed you previously. And now you can see I've still got a bit of a bias on here. So we put a call out to all services across Australia with another survey with so that they could respond to the discussion paper. But at the same time, we put a call out to children. And so educators worked with children to respond to questions that were linked to pedagogy, sustainability, and the environment. So the same kinds of themes that were in the discussion paper we used to write the questions to ask children, and it went out to a really broad range of services. So children from across Australia responded, and we had this little video that we invited children to participate, and I don't think I can show that to you today, but it's on my experts page if anybody is interested in having a look at the animation that we developed to invite the children to participate, and that worked really well.
Hi everyone.
Oh yeah.
We've got a chance for children and young people to tell us adults what they think about the things that happen when they go to our early childhood education and care, or outside school hours care services. This is their chance to tell us about some of the things that they like to do, or the places where they like to play. The children and young people can tell us about the things that they think are important. I'm going to hand over to Jenny and Francis, who are going to tell you how to get involved.
So then we went on. I know that time is short, so I then went on to talk a little bit more about the 3 different strategies that we use. So we use dialogical drawing, visual elicitation, and talking circles, and people use mixtures of those to give feedback. We've got a thread of some children who've responded to all 3 stages of the process, but that was a little difficult because we were intense in the first, broadened in the second, and then we went intense in the third. So in the stage 2 responses, children were even more articulate than they had been before, with lots of drawings, and they, as I said to you before, they spoke about the pedagogy, they spoke about the environment, their relationships with their peers and also with the staff, and then they also talked a lot about sustainability. I want to say that some of the comments that children made about the characteristics of the workforce were really quite profound, and probably were more articulate than some of the educators describing what they did in their work. One of the things that we noted too was we really needed to understand contextual information when we were developing this information, and that is particularly for when we were looking at Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander input, and also in the languages other than English. Just understanding how language is used to describe things, we needed to make sure that we actually interrogated that with a little bit more detail. And because this little girl goes to a school with her cousins, she's from a Torres Strait Islander family, and we just couldn't take that information at face value. It was really important for the educators to just give us some contextual information that helped. So then we went into stage 3, and based on, we actually rewrote the 2 documents, and we set up a 6-week trial in 16 early childhood and outside school hours care services with all of Australia involved. Over that 6-week period, the educational lead would give a video update about the kinds of things that they'd been working on. We split up the recommendations so that not everybody had to do the whole 20. Everybody looked at about 7 different aspects. And then in week 5, they then engaged with the children and said, you know, we've been working on this within our setting. What do you think about it? So again, some really rich information that we got back. One assessment and evaluation was one of the areas that we were updating. And one of the kindergarten educators actually engaged the children in self-assessment, and that provided really rich information about how appropriate that practice was for people. We then returned to the children again with another video showing them what they told us and how we'd used it. So we went in to explain what had happened, and I really love this video. I really love this video because it the background has all the drawings and information that the children had shared with us as part of the project. Feedback from the children about this material and about how the information was used was quite strong, and they were really pleased to know that their words and their ideas were being used in this way, because they were able to identify some of their drawings. And those of you who know the Early Years Learning Framework and My Time, Our Place know that it has in the back of it lots of examples of practice that educators can use, and we were able to use the children's words to populate the back of the document, which I think is really significant. It just wasn't, which it had been when I wrote the first iteration. That was just me and my research assistant thinking about when we worked in outside school hours care, what we thought was important. This time round we had not only us as adults, but we also had the children's voices in those outcomes. And I think anybody who's having a look at it will see that there's a richer array of examples there. So that's the update in a nutshell, Peter. And I'm really happy for if anybody would like to ask me any questions about the process. But it was a really rigorous process and a rewarding process for the people that were involved. But one of the things was that wide stakeholder engagement was really important to the process.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. You'll see in the chat, if you can see it, there's many positive comments about it, but I just want to commend you for giving us such rich information in such a short period of time. It was really interesting. There's a question from Parlo there about I don't know if you can see it, but she was wondering how you thought about play in relation to eliciting children's voices.
Yes, play is really important in eliciting children's voices, because we know that that's where children feel safest, usually engaged in their play. And so that's where our preparation that we did with the educators, and in some ways this surprises me, but it doesn't surprise me at the same time. Some of our educators in early childhood and outside school hours care settings had probably underutilized using and engaging with children in these playful ways of the dialogical drawing or the talking circles, and they had underestimated how the children, well, what the children would say, and so we got a lot of feedback about this is a really great process. It didn't put too much stress on anybody, and we got a lot of very rich and meaningful information about children's experiences in this space that we can use to enhance our own practice. And that was definitely, it was play. One of the changes in the early years learning framework is the removal of intentional teaching. The word teaching was actually drawn out, and it actually privileged the way in which children and adults tend to engage through play and how that learning occurs through play. And I think that's one of the things that's been really strengthened through the document. Our acknowledgement that children's brain development needs to be, they need to be in a trusting and safe space if they're going to engage with learning. We know that playful behaviours or play allows that kind of climate in the spaces, and then of course children are going to engage more deeply, and I think that's why one of the reasons we had such lovely buy-in from the children. So I hope that answers your question a little bit, Paolo, but there was some deep work around that.
Yep.
There's much more information about the update of the framework and the processes on the Macquarie University website, because Macquarie University was the lead for the project. So the project that has a lot of information on it. Also on the ASIQA website, there's information, and we are currently publishing quite significantly from the work so that people can know about the process. One of the most amazing things was to see the change in quality in the 6-week period of people undertaking the pilot. Not only was that a way of them engaging with the materials, but we also had feedback that the process really helped to develop the professionalism of the sector, and in a sector that is so under-professionalised, high turnover, low qualifications, all those kinds of things. It was interesting that we could actually see a measurable change in that 6-week period, and we didn't pilot the project with high-performing, excellent sites. They were just people that were, chosen, I know, but they weren't necessarily, high priority, in your face kind of services that were well known. They were just your average, ordinary services. Yes, we could absolutely do with a bit more play so that our brains, I know in universities we like to play with words and ideas, and some of that has been stripped away from us because we haven't got the time, or we're so stressed doing some of the other things. Maybe we should see if we can get it written into our academic plan.
Well, Jennifer, that was a really fascinating talk, and for everyone here, this is not a chance to get a complete and comprehensive overview of your project, just a little taster so everyone can follow up. So I'm sure you're going to be inundated with phone calls, if anyone phone calls anymore, messages and emails and follow up. So thank you so much. And you can see everyone clapping, either with that little thing they can click on their thing, or even Leonie, look, she's doing it with her real hands. So thank you.